Hello and welcome to another video by Landcycle. This video is an information piece for neighbourhood planning groups or objector groups, groups of people who are looking to object or comment on a local plan. I'm not suggesting that neighbourhood planning practitioners do that, but it's the tool is useful for both of those separate groups for the same reason. So what Landcycle is a platform that has been designed to be, as best as we possibly can, open access. So there are some facilities that you have to pay for that we get charged for, particularly some land registry interrogation data and some of the ordnance survey data, but otherwise most of it is open access. And the platform has been designed specifically to allow multiple users, unlimited members of a group, to be able to share information amongst themselves. So if you're creating a neighbourhood group and you want to start mapping sites and looking at sites that have been constrained, and then you form an organisation through Landcycle, I'll show you a little bit about how to do that a bit later, and then you add members into that group who can then see your database and share your mapping data. So when you're talking on the phone or when you're meeting, then you can all see the same information. Now that is very powerful and it's particularly important because what we find with a lot of platforms that are out there, or even a lot of information that's out there, it's either charged for, it's behind a paywall. Other similar planning and property platforms charge you high license fees in order to be able to access their data, so it makes it redundant to being able to share data with multiple users, and that really sort of interrupts the group's ability to be able to access data and be able to comment on a level playing field with planning professionals and planning practitioners. The main problem that we find when we are promoting sites or taking sites through a local plan process is that when they are objected against, the objectors start with very credible positions and platforms, but they often always focus on one site. They're trying to derail or deallocate one particular site, and all of their effort goes into doing that. Now, that unfortunately undermines the credibility of the argument, because planning is about the holistic view. It's about looking at how an area is going to change and which sites are suitable for development and then by comparison which sites are not. So I think what I'm saying is that any objective group or neighbourhood planning group that's looking at either making allocations or trying to object to proposed allocations, they need the holistic view. They need this open platform. So let's have a quick look at how Landcycle can help, and then it's a case of logging in for free and getting on and checking out the system for yourself. So we've just landed at this I've got no affinity with Crawley or the surrounding area. It just happens to be the one that's on the map in front of me. So the best feature to start with is looking at the existing allocations. So if you click on existing allocations tab and then you hit the search feature, you can select different forms of allocations, but let's just put them all on for now. You can then see these are existing allocations that have been allocated by local authorities. If you click that on, it gives you the unit numbers, but if you zoom in and click on a particular site, it'll give you more detail about that particular allocation. So what we then start to say is, well, why have these sites been allocated and what could potentially be next? And of course, going back to this holistic view, it's important to start looking at the other constraint layers that are either prohibiting or allowing development to take place. So for example, we can click on the greenbelt layer, so you can see the north of Crawley is heavily constrained by greenbelt. AONB is also an important consideration, and the south of Crawley is heavily constrained by area of outstanding natural beauty. Let's look at some woodland constraints. There's a lot of woodland in the area. Let's look at the flood zones, and we can also then start thinking about sustainability in terms of accessibility to some of the schools. You can click on different layers to get the schools up, so you can start to then see a picture of where the locations that might be sustainable. Same with, there's retail and there's conservation areas that you can click on, or there's railway stations and so on and so forth. So there's lots of information here available to you. So when now looking at these particular allocations and where development may occur next, we need to start thinking about where these credible locations could be, and one important factor that neighbourhood groups or objective groups should be aware of course, is the political manifestations of these areas, because obviously that changes how politics will then push development into one direction or another. So it's important to be aware of these different political constraints and where particular sites fit or fall within these political geographies. So I'm conscious I don't want this video to be too long, but I'm trying to give you enough information to make you want to use the system to start accessing the information. So the main thing I wanted to show you is when you're starting to look, you can then start to make assessments or look at why sites are not suitable, and one of those reasons might be because of financial viability, which is a critical consideration. It's a critical opportunity for you to present to local plan practitioners and say, actually, let's look at the underlying value, let's look at the deliverability, let's look at the viability of this particular scheme by looking at the valuations. Now, Landcycle has an algorithm. If you click on the land registry layer, it brings up all of the land registry titles, and you can then click on a particular plot. Let's click on that one there, for example. If it's over 10 acres, it will then give you a breakdown. This one's actually slightly under 10 acres. No, sorry, this isn't. This is over 10. This is 100. What are we here? This is the acreage is 173 acres. The green part is 173 acres, and what the algorithm is telling us is that this site with 50% open space could accommodate 1,086 units, and if it were to get planning for 1,086 units, this would be its value. Every acre would be worth £700,000, just over, and the total land value would be 121 million. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but before local authorities allocate land, they need to be aware of these values and the contracts that have been signed with house builders and national house builders to understand whether or not they've signed land with a promise to pay too much for the land, and therefore that becomes a material consideration in whether or not the land, if it is allocated, is likely to ever be developed. With Landcycle, you can also purchase the title, and often in the title you'll see if it's been signed or if there's a contract in place by a developer, because that will often be registered on the title. There is a charge to buy a title, because unfortunately we get charged £3, so we charge £3 for the title. So you'd have to top up your credits if you wanted to start buying titles, but you don't have to buy titles, and therefore you don't have to top up the credits. It's just something that is available to you should you wish to do so. So what you might decide that you want to start doing is looking at, I'm going to turn some of these layers off, but we can, well, let's put the existing allocations back on. So you might actually say, you know, this site should come forward as opposed to another one that you're involved in. And how would you then map and share that information with your colleagues? Well, what you can do is there's drawing tools, so you can click on the drawing tool, you can then click on the shape that you want to create, and you can then draw the shape, and then you can save the shape. I'll just do this very quickly. You can then save the shape, and you can then save it to your drawing library with a label here. Let's call that plot 5, for example. You'll then save that to your library, and then when you want to share that with other people, obviously I've done that very crudely, so sorry it's looking a bit not very nicely drawn, but you would then invite the other planning practitioners to sign up to an account, again for free. You will then create an organisation, so I've created a fictitious one here called Elmbridge Neighbourhood Planning Group, and then within that you can manage that group. I'm going to switch to that group, and then I can invite other members into that group and then share my database and my information with them. Now I'm going to just go, I'm going to just switch back to my own one for now. Go back to the map. Now if I decided, for example, I wanted to add that to my database, I would then click on the land registry layer, I'd click on it, I would then save that to my database. I could then create a contact for that database. I'm happy with that. Save it. Yes, I do want to save it. And then it goes into my database, and that information and the database, which is here, is then shared with my group. So that's the entry I've created. There it is, with all the various notes that I want to put on there. I can say I've looked at this and I think it's possible, or what have you. And that's a great way of sharing your maps and database with your colleagues in your own group that you've created. So look, I'm really sorry I've rushed through that as quick as I possibly can, because the video is already 10-11 minutes long. But I just wanted to give you a flavour for how Landcycle is a powerful open access tool that can allow multiple users to share information amongst yourselves and write notes and then discuss those projects later with all the layers available, so you can really be well versed with the planning constraints, and it then creates a level playing field for you as groups to be able to then properly present your case to local plan practitioners. Hope that's helpful. If you do want any more information, the email is here, support@landcycle.com. Please feel free to email, and if you wanted me to phone you, put your number in there and I will call you and discuss in more detail how this could work and help you as a group. Thanks very much for watching.